Hello there and welcome to Hyundai Power Equipment. Today we're going to take a look at the HYEA5080 Earth Auger. Right, no time like the present, let's have a look in your box then. So as you can see, I've laid the contents of your box all over the table here, to make it easy for you to see. Right, let's see what you've got. First of all, you've got 3 augers in this kit. They're all 800mm long, and we have a 100, a 150 and a 200mm auger. 4, 6 and 8 English, 8 inches in Old English. And you'll see each one of them has a little drill bit on the end with a rubber stopper. Keep hold of your rubber stoppers and bung them back on the end when you finish using your auger, and it'll just protect the drill bit, and it saves you cutting your hands and all sorts. Next we have the head unit itself. It's a 2-handled head unit, very lightweight unit. We shall go through the details on that a little later. Next, the 2-stroke oil mixing bottle. This is vitally important, we'll go through that as well. Then you have your Hyundai toolkit. There's a few spanners and what have you, all the bits and bobs of tools that you're likely to need to assemble it. Then you have the user's manual. Now again, it's quite a comprehensive user's manual, and it goes through all the assembly and everything else you're likely to need to know, but we do recommend that you actually read it because there are some useful health and safety tips in there as well. The next thing we have, and this is important again, is your warranty registration form. Now you can fill this in and post it back to us, or it does show some other ways that you can do it as well, by email or filling in an online form as well, I believe. So that's your warranty registration. And finally, this is your Morris Lubricants lubrication sheet, which shows you what 2-stroke oil we recommend for this unit, with it being a 2-stroke engine. And that's pretty much what you'll get in your box. Well, without further ado, let's get on with some assembly then, shall we? First of all, I'll show you how the augers fit. I'll turn it upside down so that you can see. Basically, you've got an output shaft, which is the drive shaft from the engine, and it has a hole through it, as you can see here. The end of your auger slides down over there, and there's a bolt that goes through the hole. If I show you the auger, we'll use the largest one, the 8-inch auger. You'll see there's an Allen bolt with a nut on the end. If I go to the toolkit, in the toolkit you'll see the large Allen key and a little box spanner. So it's the largest Allen key and a little box spanner. Box spanner has a large end and a small end. It's the small end we need. Allen key goes in the Allen bolt, small end of the box spanner on the nut, and just loosen it off. Okay, now we can remove the nut and the Allen bolt. We'll put those to one side just for the moment. Right. You can see the hole in the shaft and the hole in the auger. What we're attempting to do, and it's fairly straightforward, is to line up the hole in the auger with the hole in the shaft. So just let it slip down slowly and put the bolt through the hole. Now as you can see, that's gone right through the hole. Next job, put the nut back on. The box spanner and the Allen key tighten the nut and bolt back up. Now fairly tight with this, nothing silly, but you don't need to really wrench on it so you're hurting your hands, but good and tight so that the nut doesn't vibrate off and you loosen it. Okay, well there we are. It's still got its rubber stopper on, so that's good. That's pretty much the auger fitted. Before use, you'd obviously remove the rubber cap, fuel up the engine and all the rest of it, and it would be ready to use. Next thing I'll do is go through the engine instructions, how to fuel it, how to use it and what have you. Next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the engine itself, the starting procedure and what have you. First of all, as I said earlier, this is a 2-stroke engine. It's a 50.8cc, Euro 2 compliant, even Euro 2 semi-professional compliant engine. On its emissions, but it does need 2-stroke oil, and this is vitally important. Now, if I refer back to the 2-stroke oil bottle, which I mentioned earlier on, this is where the mixing of the 2-stroke oil with the fresh unleaded petrol is done, and it's very important that you sort of adhere to this quite strictly. Now then, with your bottle, you'll see that there's several lines and marks. I mean, there's a line there, a long line that says fuel, and above it there's a line that says 25:1 oil, another one that says 40:1 oil. In fact, on the other side, I believe there's a 25:1, 35:1 and a 50:1 for other machinery, but the two we're interested in are 25:1 and 40:1. So, what you do first of all, you put your bottle on a nice level surface, then fill up with fresh unleaded petrol to the long line that says fuel. And be as accurate as you like with this. It's quite important that you get it right. Once you've done that, you take your two-stroke additive. Now we'll talk about the two-stroke additives. With this machine, we recommend Morris lubricants, and on the little sheet it'll show that the Morris lubricant we recommend for this, the two-stroke oil, is a ground force 2HSS, which is it's a synthetic or semi-synthetic two-stroke oil. If you use a semi-synthetic or synthetic two-stroke oil, your mixture ratio will be 40:1. If you use a sort of garden centre available two-stroke oil, you'll need to use a 25:1 mixture. So, the garden centre oils, as I said, the cheap ones that aren't synthetic or semi-synthetic, a litre of fuel up to the line, be as accurate as you can, then add the two-stroke oil until the level comes up to 25:1. Now, be accurate, you need to be at least up to that line, not way above, not way below, on that line as close as you can get to the sea. If you're using the recommended oil, the semi-synthetics or synthetic oils, 40:1 is enough. So as you can see, there is an advantage of buying the more expensive synthetic ones, you're using less of it. But 40:1. So you'll see the line 40:1 with an arrow and the little line, and fill it up to 40:1. And it's vitally important that we get that right. Once you've got your mixture, lid back on, give it a good shake to mix the two-stroke oil in with the fuel. Obviously make sure your lids are on tight. And the next thing you would do is to put fuel in your engine. Basically this is a fuel filler cap. It's on what would be, when it's stood up, the normal operating position on the top, which is really suitable position for it. Remove the filler cap. Basically take your two-stroke oil, undo the cap from the pouring spout, and fill up the fuel tank. Now, this fuel tank, I believe, is 0.8 of a litre, so you will have some fuel left over, so be warned that once you've done your mixture, there will be a bit more left, probably half a tank, something like that, a bit less than half a tank worth of fuel left in your bottle when the fuel tank is full. And fill the fuel tank up to this sort of level here, not overflowing out of the top, and then you won't have any spills. And then carefully replace the fuel filler cap. Again, put the cap back on your bottle, which would have fuel in it, and that's safe, ready for when you need a top up. Okay. A few more little details on the engine. Two things we need to do. First of all, we need to prime the carburetor. Now we've got fuel in here now, and underneath the carburetor, which is underneath this air filter here, back under here, I'll tip it over and show you in a moment, is a plunger or a primer bulb. This needs to be pushed several times, and there are two pipes. Well, there are actually three, there's a breather, but there are two pipes which will fill with fuel as you press the primer bulb. It sucks fuel up into the carburetor, and you'll see the air bubbles and fuel going back down. Push it 7 or 8 times until you see clean fuel running down instead of bubbles, and that's primed, ready to go. I'll tip it over to show you that operation. Okay, as you can see, the primer bulb is here, and that would be the action of pressing the primer bulb. Probably about 8 times is all you need, but that's only when it's been run out of petrol or you haven't used it for a few days. So primer bulb, you'll see fuel coming up the one pipe, down the other. When it's just fuel and, you know, most 90% fuel and no bubbles, that's it, primed and ready to go. The next thing to show you is the choke. Again, if you look at the filler cap down here, the choke is on the top of the engine, up for choke, down for off. So with a cold engine, prior to starting, you need to turn the choke on. The next thing on the other side here, this is the on-off switch. It's quite clearly marked on and off. Obviously we want the engine turned on. So, having turned the engine on, we've got the choke on, we've primed it. Next thing to do, I'm not going to start this engine indoors, but there's no fuel in it anyway, is to pull the pull starter. Now this is an easy start engine, so it doesn't take much of a pull, but if you take a good firm grip on the head, pull the pull starter, the engine will start up. After a few seconds, turn the choke off and the engine will tick over nicely. The auger won't turn until you pull the accelerator or the throttle. There's a centrifugal clutch. So basically when the engine's ticking over, the auger doesn't rotate. So the next thing you would do, this here is basically like the accelerator pedal on your car. As you pull it, the engine revs up. When you let go, the engine will stop or slow down to a tick over and the auger will stop rotating. So when you're ready to go, hold the auger in the position where you want it, nice solid grip, open up the throttle and the auger will start to spin. Let go and the auger will stop, and you can hold onto the head quite nicely. You do have to be quite firm with these. There's a lot of power in this engine and you need to hang on to it. You know, it can't get away with it if you're not careful. So good firm grip, both hands, on with the throttle, auger will start to spin. Start gently, and then as it takes a nice grip, you can speed up. And that's pretty much the operation. So just go through that once more. Fuel in, prime it 7 or 8 times till the air bubbles go, choke on, switch on, pull start. Once it's started, a few seconds, turn the choke off. If you've been running it for a while and you're going from one hole to another and it's only been a couple of minutes since you started it, you probably won't need to use the choke. If you do, you put the choke on, it probably won't start then. Just turn the choke off, a couple more pulls, and then it will start. But once the engine's warm, you pretty much won't need the choke. That's pretty much covered the operation of the engine. I'd like to talk a bit more about this engine. It's actually a really good quality engine. We're very pleased with this. It's a 50.8cc two-stroke engine. It's classified for Euro 2 semi-professional use. Pretty much what that means, it talks about the emissions, and you have Euro 1 and 2 and what have you. Euro 2 is for semi-professional use. So it's not just Euro 2. The semi-professional part means that it passes its emissions for a lot longer time after use. During its testing, it's tested after various amounts of hours, but it's actually Euro 2 semi-professional, which means it still passes its emissions after, you know, I'm not sure the exact figure, but a great deal of use, which is a testament to its quality. It's actually got 1800 watts of power, which is really good. A lot of these 52cc engines you see out there of this sort of type only have 1400 watts of power. And it actually will use about, in full use, will use about 800 millilitres of fuel an hour instead of the normal sort of 1200 millilitres which these 52cc engines use. So pretty much over the lifetime of the machine you could save quite a bit of money in fuel and additives, you know, purely in fuel alone. So that's it about the engine. What we're going to do is get one of our demonstrator models and perhaps go out in the garden and show you one of these in use. Okay, so I've filled the machine with fuel, half full on the tank just for this. We can turn on the switch. We then prime the primer bulb, as I described earlier, until we've got clean fuel. That should be enough. And then we turn the choke on. Now I would show that for starting, I've got my hand on the handle end over the top of the engine, the other handle on my hip. And then when you pull the pull starter, you're just pulling towards yourself and you've got a firm grip on the machine. It's a soft start, but you know, or an easy start, but you know, it's good to have it solid rather than you pulling the machine around. Once the engine's started, you then turn the choke off. You can rotate the machine around and have it in this position. The exhaust is then facing away from you, which is obviously a good idea. But another point to that is that when you pull the throttle, should you catch a rock or a tree root or something like that and the machine snags, it's always going to pull that way out of your hand and make you automatically release the throttle. If you have it the other way around, it's, you know, you're going to be, as you can see, and it faces this way, you're always going to be pulling the throttle back on again, so the machine will keep trying to spin and it'll really give you a nasty jerk. If you have it this way and it catches, it comes out of your hand, blade stops rotating, safest way to do it. So okay, without further ado, we'll start the machine. Okay, choke off. Operating position. Find the spot where you want to hold. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Well, thank you for purchasing your new HYEA5080 Earth Auger. I hope you have as much enjoyment using it as I did. And I've been Adrian, and happy drilling.